Since they're, engaging in this weird protection racket for ineffective loser Democrats, yeah, your job is made harder when it doesn't need to be harder. You should be welcoming challenges to ineffective Democrats, but they just want to protect their buddies, even if their buddies are not good at their jobs.
I deeply respect you, David. I too was looking forward to working with you, but this has created a situation, and I'll be very honest with you, for the first time in my 100 days on this job. And the other night I said to myself for the first time, I don't know if I want to do this anymore. I'm just quite frustrated to be in this position.
You just heard leaked audio that was sent over to Politico featuring Democratic National Committee Chair Ken Martin, revealing to fellow DNC officers that, he's just not confident in his ability to lead the party because of infighting surrounding Vice Chair David Hogg. So the audio comes from a May 15th Zoom meeting of DNC officials, Democratic National Committee, of course. They discussed the ongoing conflict that ignited when David Hogg specifically announced that he'll be helping a separate PAC spend $20 million in safe blue districts to essentially oust ineffective Democratic incumbents. Now, Martin has argued that Hogg should be required to stay neutral in races between Democrats. So if there is a Democrat who has decided to primary an incumbent, Martin argues we shouldn't take a side, even though the Democratic establishment loves to take a side. It's usually the side of the corporate Democrat, usually the side of the incumbent who is a corporate Democrat. But nonetheless, Hogg had pitched a compromise, suggesting an internal firewall that would bar him from access to sensitive information in primaries his group, Leaders We Deserve, were involved with. But Martin rejected that deal. So on the call, Ken Martin, who was elected just a few months ago, got emotional while telling his fellow DNC members that the feud is making it more difficult for him to effectively lead the party. Take a look.
The other night I said to myself for the first time, I don't know if I want to do this anymore. And partly not because of the stress and all the naysayers, right? I'm used to that. I've spent 14 years as a chair. I'm used to getting beat up on. I'm just quite frustrated to be in this position because what you've done, whether you like it or not, or know it or not, David, is no one knows who the hell I am, right? I'm trying to get my sea legs underneath of me and actually develop any amount of credibility so I can go out there and raise the money and do the job I need to put ourselves in a position to win. And again, I don't think you intended this, but you essentially destroyed any chance I have to show the leadership that I need to. So it's really frustrating.
Okay, so it's not clear who leaked this Zoom call to Politico. There have been some accusations lobbed at David Hogg, although David Hogg totally denies that he's the one who leaked it. Now, the clip does not include the whole conversation, so it's unclear how David Hogg even responded or how other members of the DNC responded to Martin's admission here. But before I get to a statement from DNC officials who spoke to Politico to comment on the leaked audio, I want to get a sense of where you're at on this, Was.
If you go on Twitter right now and you look at some of these right-wing accounts and the way that they talk about Democrats as soy boys and low T and all of this kind of stereotype stuff, like that's that clip that you just played encapsulated that. Like, this dude is pretending that like he can't get out of bed, he can't do his freaking job that he campaigned for, volunteered to do. He can't do his job because it's difficult.
Yep.
That's the message. My job is difficult. And David, you haven't contributed to making it easy. Like, come on, bro. Sack up, bro.
I mean,
be serious.
We are in a heated political environment. We are in an environment in which the Democratic Party has no real identity other than, taking on a more pro-corporate tone, abandoning the working class, leaning into identity politics to the detriment of their own party because they went too far and people got sick of it. Yeah, it's gonna be tough, Ken. Did you think it was gonna be a cakewalk to be the DNC chair at a time when, I think at this point, for the first time in decades, registration of Democratic voters is lower than registered Republicans, or the number of registered Republicans. That's a problem. And it's because no one likes what you guys are selling. It's gonna be tough because you need to figure out what Americans want. They're so out of touch. You need to actually have conversations with ordinary Americans. And to be quite frank, I think the infighting in regard to primarying incumbents is part of the problem. Not because I'm against it, but because the Democratic establishment, Ken Martin included, are trying to prevent it from happening. You shouldn't try to prevent it from happening. It should absolutely happen. But since they're, engaging in this weird protection racket for ineffective loser Democrats, yeah, your job is made harder when it doesn't need to be harder. You should be welcoming challenges to ineffective Democrats, but they just want to protect their buddies. Even if their buddies are not good at their jobs, even if their buddies have not done a good job representing the constituents that elected them in those positions of power in the first place. Democrats are embarrassing, man. And I don't mean the voters. I want to be clear. I feel so much empathy for voters across the board because we're all in this terrible situation where we look at the two parties and it's like, I don't know. I'm too left for the right and I'm too right for the left. Like I'm in this weird place, politically speaking. But you look at the Democratic Party, I don't even know if they're too far left or too far right. All I know is they're pro-corporate. And anyone who wants to challenge them on that gets crushed. So I think that's the heart of the problem, Ken Martin. But I don't know. What do you think, Waz?
I mean, the heart of the problem is that the people who orchestrated the failures in November and previous in Joe Biden running again in 2020, Joe Biden refusing to get out of the race, Kamala Harris's horrible campaign, the people who orchestrated that and presided over it are the very people stepping in front of any change happening at the top. Mm-hmm. And again, these are the people that shepherded the party into, at one point, what was a 27% approval rating, an approval rating worse than Donald Trump's, one of the most historically unpopular politicians of our lifetimes, okay? Polarizing, dude, the Democrats are polling worse than that, which means that half of their own voters, okay, like it's pretty simple math. If 50% of the country, give or take, are Democrats and they're at 25% approval, that means half of their own people are sick and tired of them. And again, the very same people who presided over the failure, over this weakness, are now saying, no, we can't, you can't possibly want to go against our instincts. We're so razor sharp. Like we're the ones that got us Trump. Why would you go against us?
Yeah. They really need to study the syntax. There hasn't been enough studying of the syntax, and that might be the real problem here. So look, the DNC for the most part is rallying around Ken Martin, supporting him. For instance, DNC Associate Chair Shasti Conrad, which is a great name, who attended the Zoom meeting and was briefly mentioned on it, said Martin showed vulnerability in a private conversation and stood up for the Democratic Party. He shows up with authenticity always, she said. That's what you'll hear on the tape. Look, I don't have a problem with him being vulnerable. I do have a problem with him failing to understand the current moment the Democratic Party is in, because his little infighting with David Hogg is like just the tip of the iceberg. Okay, the fact that the Democratic Party has really lost touch with ordinary, everyday Americans, that's a far bigger problem that will make his job far more challenging. Others who were on the call directly attacked David Hogg and called him a distraction. For instance, Jane Klee, president of the Association of State Democratic Committees, said that instead of helping to rebuild the party he's supposed to serve, he's attacking it for personal gain. That might boost his PAC's fundraising, but it erodes trust in the very institution we're trying to reform and strengthen. Now, look, Jane, you need to be clear about how you intend to reform the Democratic Party, because I haven't seen any real reforms yet. I've seen a super dorky effort to like try to understand men, where their initial findings they're weirdly surprised by. Like, oh, it looks like young men in this country are economically frustrated. Who knew? So embarrassing. And as for Ken Martin, he says he's staying put despite expressing doubts about his ability to be a leader in the Democratic Party. He says, I'm not going anywhere. I took this job to fight Republicans, not Democrats. As I said when I was elected, our fight is not within the Democratic Party. Our fight is and has to be solely focused on Donald Trump and his disastrous Republican agenda. Democrats are cooked. They're totally cooked. Look, I have no problem with you guys going after Trump when he does something wrong, but that's all you guys have focused on over the last 8-9 years. You have to figure out what your party represents and what they want to do for the American people. Unless you have a solid identity that appeals to the American people, the Democratic Party is cooked. It's that simple. Everyone already has their views on Trump. They either love him, hate him, or aren't paying attention at all and aren't political at all. But this idea that they're gonna win elections by just constantly harping on Trump without offering voters something to vote for is ridiculous to me. And they're gonna keep going in that direction, apparently. Any final words, Waz?
This is just the stupidest thing I've ever heard in my life. I didn't come in here to fight with Democrats. I came to fight Republicans. Have you ever heard of the term rhino? This is why in our country, the tug of war only ever goes to the right. In the Republican Party, when you're not sufficiently conservative enough, you get killed, okay? You get smoked. That's it. We weed you out, you're out of here until we get a party that sufficiently, represents the maximalist conservatism that we could possibly find out there. There is no, oh no, we like the guys that are like mealy-mouthed conservatives and can barely articulate what they like about being conservative or being in. No, you get smoked, and therefore our country only ever goes to the right. They don't elevate people who are quote unquote moderate. In fact, those are the people who are the most loathed in that party. Right? Whereas the Democrats want to pretend, and I think erroneously, that they can be both for the good billionaires and normal working people.
Yep.
This is the party. Like the Republicans, I mean, their whole thing is like, we're not gonna help working people, but you kids
we're gonna pretend like we will, right?
Yeah,
we're gonna engage in rhetoric, making it appear as though we have a economic populist strain within the party, but there has been absolutely no solid proof that what they're saying is true or is coming to fruition at all.
Or even in the ways that they're gonna help working people is like, look, man, we're not gonna let your kids turn trans at school, right? Like that's, to them, that's what they're offering the normal everyday working people. Make no mistake about it, we're here to cut taxes for rich people. Yep. We're here to deregulate the hell out of the economy. Any Republican who pretends he's not with that program, you are not going to be empowered within this party. And so the Democrats, on the other hand, just don't believe in anything that they claim that their platform is about. They're not fighting for abortion rights. They're certainly not fighting for wage fairness for working people. Healthcare, I mean, it's Bernie Sanders, AOC, and then what? Nobody seems to care about the health. They're a joke. And in so much as, because in America, left just means that you're vaguely racially progressive and gender progressive, I guess. The Democrats aren't a party of the left, man. They're a party of the corporate oligarchic power. And that's the direction this establishment seems to think is going to guarantee them victories going forward, even though it so thoroughly failed them in the more recent past.
Every time you ring the bell below, an angel gets his wings. Totally not true, but it does keep you updated on our live shows.